Defenders left a lot to be desired. Some of the character interactions were fun, and there were a handful of good fight scenes, but Defenders felt a lot closer to a Justice League than an Avengers. And if I'm making one big change, I'd probably take a look at the miniseries' villains, but for this video, I want to focus specifically on a moment that Defenders was missing. So I'm going to add a scene. Here's where it would show up. Danny's being held captive in the underground Dragon Bones cave. The other three Defenders, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, head to the building that's over the Dragon Bones cave. Also, this might count as a nitpick, not unlike my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking, now on Spotify. But Luke Cage is wearing a yellow t-shirt, and Jessica Jones is wearing a purple tank top. Here's why. Look at this image. No one stands out except Danny. This isn't about making costumes comic accurate. If you're going to set your fight in a poorly lit underground Dragon Bone cave, we need to be able to immediately identify each character. Danny has the fist, Daredevil has the outfit, Luke and Jessica need outfits to visually separate themselves from the bad guys, especially if everyone's fighting style is just a different kind of punching. So anyway, Matt, Jessica, and Luke approach the building, which is guarded by a ton of ninjas disguised as bodyguards. The team realizes that this will be a problem. They're at a huge disadvantage numbers-wise, and they don't have much time to get into the building. And before they can come up with a plan, one of the ninjas notices them, makes a signal to some of the other ninjas. They start walking over to the team, who doesn't necessarily panic, but realizes how screwed they are. And then Matt says, "Hold on, there's someone else here." He hears the click of a gun loading, Matt's confused, then multiple men in body armor come out of the shadows and shoot the ninjas with silencers. And those fancy TV silencers that don't make any noise, if you have a chance, go online, look up how loud a real silencer is. It's very loud. They drop all the ninjas instantly. The men in body armor then collect the dead ninjas. Our heroes are confused, then one man walks up to Matt and tosses him a walkie-talkie. Matt holds the walkie-talkie up to his ear, and then we hear, "Hello, Fisk, the crime boss? I think of myself as more of an entrepreneur, but yes, Wilson Fisk. Isn't he in jail? I am, but my stature grants me certain liberties. These walls can only hold a man for so long. You of all people should know that, Mr. Cage. What do you want? A truce. I want to help you stop them. We're not working with you. Well, I don't suppose you have a plan to get past the remaining assassins and deal with the reinforcements that are on their way. He's right. And how'd you know about this? Well, I've been suspicious of Gao for a long time. I knew she was up to something, but I couldn't figure out exactly what. I had a plan to stop her in motion, but you interfered, and it never came to fruition. Why should we trust you? Well, first, my men had the drop on you, and you're still alive. And second, the only thing in this world that I love more than my Vanessa is this city. And I know you all share my passion to defend it. We have our differences, but today, fate has put us on the same side. I don't buy it. Believe me or don't, it doesn't matter. Whatever Gao is planning, she must be stopped. My men will guard the building. You three get down there and end it. When we're done here, nothing changes. I wouldn't have it any other way. Matt tosses the walkie-talkie on the ground, then the team walks past the guards into the building. So that's it, tiny change, 3 minutes of screen time. And I think this is important for two reasons. First, everything we've learned about Wilson Fisk up until this point should lead us to believe he would also be involved in taking down the Hand. To start, Fisk has power. In the short time between Daredevil seasons 1 and 2, Fisk has practically taken over the prison. It would stand to reason that in the time between Daredevil season 2 and Defenders, Fisk's influence should extend even further into the city. Fisk is also aware of Madame Gao. He knows that she has a hidden agenda, and especially since all the rest of the criminal leaders from Daredevil Season 1 are dead, it isn't unreasonable that outside of Daredevil, the person Fisk would most want to keep tabs on would be Gao. Fisk is also aware of Murakami's faction of the Hand through his relationship with Nobu. He may not know them as the Hand or what they do, but he knows there's another player in New York City who employs ninjas and has his own agenda. Finally, Fisk does genuinely care about New York City. If, through his connections, Fisk learned that Gao and Nobu's boss were working with leaders of other criminal organizations on some project that the Devil of Hell's Kitchen was working against, he would either see it as a possible threat to his eventual control of the city or an existential threat to the city itself. Either way, Fisk should, in some way, be involved in this story. I think this kind of truce can also help to raise the stakes of the current action. I call this a Magneto moment. Magneto's probably the most prominent X-Men villain, yet in the movies, Magneto's frequently joining teaming up with the X-Men, it's usually to stop some major antagonist that threatens all of mutant kind. In fact, in his 6 major film appearances, Magneto has teamed up with the other X-Men 4 times. Granted, one of those times was First Class, pre-villain Magneto, and one was Apocalypse, where he just teamed up with the X-Men in the very end. But that still means that Magneto and the X-Men were forced to put aside their differences and deal with a greater threat about half of the time. And there's a reason why. This kind of Magneto moment helps to really drive home to the audience how serious the situation is. If Fisk is willing to work with his sworn enemy and let that enemy know that he's gaining even more influence in prison, the city must be in a lot of danger. And you may say, as many people do, this is just fan service. It doesn't matter for the overall story, it's just a pointless cameo to gratify the audience. And that's partially true. It will absolutely make the Daredevil fans happy. Oh look, it's Kingpin from season 1. Oh man, do I miss season 1. But there's another more important reason for Fisk's inclusion. There are a lot of reasons why the Marvel Cinematic Universe works. Writing, directing, acting, casting. Seriously, Sarah Halley Finn is the unsung hero of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But if you want to know why I believe the MCU is so special compared to other film franchises and cinematic universes, you can boil it down to one word from the first Iron Man movie. Tony Stark has just given his disaster press conference in which he announced that he is in fact Iron Man. Tony enters his house, Jarvis shuts down, and then Tony notices a man in shadow wearing a coat that only Sam Jackson could make look cool, who we now know to be Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury says sarcastically, "I am Iron Man. You think you're the only superhero in the world?" Then he says, "Mr. Stark, you've become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet." That is 100% why the MCU works and nearly all of the rest of these cinematic universes crash and burn. And I believe it's a very deliberately constructed sentence. Mr. Stark comes first, then everything that follows is Fury speaking directly to the audience. The universe that these movies inhabit is big, bigger than you can imagine. Things are happening that you aren't seeing. And then the most important word in all of these movies, yet. The promise that more of the history of this universe will be revealed over time. We're going to make you ask questions, and we have answers. Most people think of world building as the Tolkien-esque writing the entire history of the universe that a fantasy or science fiction story takes place in. And that's absolutely part of it. But at its core, whatever happens in a story builds the world in which the story takes place. And one thing that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is low-key great at is world building. Not just teasing future movies, slowly expanding the scope of the stories, naturally revealing more of the universe. And yeah, there are characters like Karen Page and Claire Temple who cross between the Netflix shows, but there isn't that same kind of connection as, say, a Coulson. Claire shows up to get martial arts lessons from Colleen Wing because the show wants Claire to be involved, and she doesn't have another story going on that she's part of. As far as we're concerned, what Claire is doing in Iron Fist is all she's doing at that moment. Coulson, on the other hand, seems to be doing things outside of the current story. He's only pulled into the current story because that's where he would be. Same with a character like General Ross in Civil War or Hawkeye in Thor. There's another story going on which Coulson is a part of, but we aren't yet. World building can't only happen in offhanded comments and post-credit scenes. The world needs to constantly be in motion. Characters need to be popping in and out, but not just because it would be fun to see them, because their story naturally crosses over with the story we're following. And maybe we don't know every detail of what the crossover character is doing. We probably shouldn't. We just need to believe that they're doing something, and we'll eventually find out what. That's why I think this Fisk cameo is crucial. It is the natural result of Fisk's past relationships with members of the Hand. It would amplify the present threat that the Hand poses, and we can use it to give the audience and the heroes a glimpse of how much of a problem Fisk is going to be once he shows up in the future. So, thank you to all of my patrons for continuing to support the channel. You guys are amazing. If you want to see your name up here and get an early look at the videos and other fun stuff, throw in a buck or two at patreon.com/NandoVMovies. I really appreciate it. Also, check out my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking. Every week, my co-host DJ and I analyze a pop culture thing by looking exclusively at the details. We're on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the channel, watch other videos, and almost finally, follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I'm at NandoVMovies. But okay, I realized that if you add this scene to Defenders, you also get an opportunity to add a fun new post-credit scene. I figured I'd talk about that too, and just for fun, I would put it after the credits of my video. So there's a very good chance most people turned the video off and aren't seeing this, but they'll figure it out eventually. Now I know I just said that world building isn't just something you're supposed to do in post-credit scenes, but they are useful for a very specific type of world building, so I think it's still worth doing. And if you watch Defenders, you may remember it also had kind of a post-credit scene. Technically, the post-credit scene is a Punisher trailer, but there was a next season teaser scene that came right before the credits, and I have a feeling that's just because Netflix usually doesn't do credits. Sorry, Joel McHale show guy. Either way, the new Kingpin scene gives us a chance to add a fun teasery scene before the end of this. And thank God, cause boy did I hate the Defenders pre-credit scene. If you haven't seen Defenders, basically all of our main characters escape the collapsing building except Daredevil, who chooses to stay and die with Elektra. It's a strange choice, but it's a choice, and a pretty ballsy one. Daredevil, the character that launched this franchise, is dead. And the rest of the final episode is characters talking about what a hero Matt was and how much they're gonna miss him. Danny is taking up Matt's mission to protect the city. It's an interesting ending. But then we see Matt in a church hospital. He's all kinds of beat up, but he's alive. And the scene teases that Matt's actual mother, Sister Maggie, is the one who's taking care of him. And I looked this up. Matt is dead for just over 14 minutes of screen time. For reference, in Batman v Superman, the length of time between when Superman dies and the dirt on his coffin rises, seeming to suggest that he's alive, is 15 minutes. So that's the low bar. If you're going to fake kill a character in a movie or TV show, you should at least keep them dead for longer than BVS Superman. So let's scrap that scene, save the Matt is alive reveal for another show, maybe Iron Fist further down the line. Let's do this instead. We flash back to the scene where Kingpin is talking to the Defenders over the walkie-talkie. Matt tosses the walkie-talkie on the ground and they enter the building. One of Kingpin's men picks up the walkie-talkie. He says, "They're in." And Kingpin says, "Good, now keep them safe." Understood. And then the man with the walkie-talkie notices cars pulling up. It's the reinforcements. And before they get out of their vans, this man whips out a pair of pistols and shoots at the vans. Only a couple shots, but very quick and precise. The vans stop, the man pulls back his guns, and then we look in the van and notice that all of the reinforcements are dead via headshots. And then, depending on how subtle you want to be, he can either put the guns into a duffel bag, which has an Ace of Spades playing card sticking out of it, or if you really want to beat the audience over the head with it, he sees that all the reinforcements are dead, smiles, and says to himself, "Bullseye." If you weren't aware, Bullseye's a pretty popular Marvel Comics villain. He's easily the highest profile Daredevil villain that hasn't been part of any of these shows yet. Bullseye has near perfect aim, and he uses that to turn any object into a deadly weapon. The Ace of Spades is a pretty common symbol of Bullseye's, since he frequently uses playing cards as projectiles. Now, we don't know where Bullseye is in this universe, although it is heavily implied that he's worked for Fisk in the past, since at one point in Daredevil Season 1, Fisk employed a sniper who also had the Ace of Spades playing card in his bag. And I don't know if this is confirmed, but it seems like Bullseye will be part of Daredevil Season 3. So if that's true, I think this post-credit scene is way more effective. It hints that not only is Fisk using mercenaries to do his dirty work while he's in prison, but one of them is Daredevil's archenemy, which would imply that Matt somehow survived the collapse of the building and will be back to fight Bullseye in the future. We don't know how Matt survived, but forcing the audience to ask that kind of question is exactly what a post-credit scene is for. Again, subscribe to the channel, watch more videos, check out the Patreon, and finally, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. I'm at NandoVMovies. That's all I've got. I'll see you next time.